Before we talk about Ecleos and the cult that they built, let us first tackle the Dinagat Islands. Dinagat Islands are a group of islands located in the south side of Lake Go. The island has white sand beaches, clear cool waters, fresh air, and breathtaking view. Yet the islands was not known to many because of how beautiful the island was, but because it is known to other people because of the Ecleos and the cult that started in the island. On December 3, 1934, Hostiana Edera gave birth to Ruben Edera Ecleo Sr., the youngest of her 5 children. Ruben Sr. was an active, industrious, and obedient child growing up with his 5 older siblings, namely Spirito, Rosenciana, Nicolas, Aldarica, and Moises. The family was very poor at that time and they lived in Kabilang town. So on 1941, the Ecleo family moved to the sea coast west of Dinagat Islands. It's Sitio Poyangi. Jose Ecleo, the father of Ruben Sr., was a fisherman, and when they moved to Sitio Poyangi, he was involved in a small-scale business. And because the island has no school, Ruben Sr.'s mother taught them how to read and write. At the age of 7, Ruben Sr. was beginning to start a mission while playing with other children on the island. So when he turned 8, started traveling on far places such as Visayas region and some part of northern Mindanao for his mission. At the age of 9, he went to school in Panaon Island in southern Leyte as a grade 2 pupil. At the age of 11, Ruben Sr. went back to Dinagat Island and enrolled as a grade 3 pupil. But before Ruben Sr. went back to Dinagat, he received dictations from the spiritual realm in the mountains of northern Leyte. He was alone in the mountains, surviving the cold nights, heat of the sun, and hunger. He even survived the wild animals that could possibly bite or eat him. Spending many days in the mountain alone, Ruben Sr. meditates and obtained the oneness with his spiritual self. The voices that Ruben Sr. heard taught him to speak the language of Arabic, Aramaic, Hebrew, and Sanskrit. At the early age of Ruben Sr., he became a healer missionary, traveling in different places to heal the sick, and even others said that he can rise the dead. So in 1952, Ruben Sr. went to the United States to join a service study tour in the state, and then he went back to the Philippines in the year of 1953. On 1955, Ruben Sr. decided to marry Glenda Buray, and he had 8 children, namely Ruben Jr., Glory Gen, Graceland, Ben, Alan the First, Alan the Second, Geraldine, and Gwendolyn. He had also a son named Ruben from his previous mistress named Reneria Borja. After his marriage with Glenda, Ruben Sr. started his major healing where he appeared in different places at the same time. Ruben Sr.'s followers claimed that their divine master had power of astral traveling. That's why it was possible for him to be present in different places at the same time. He uses different names and appear in different places. Sometimes he is old, sometimes a young man. He uses different names for his different appearances. And the names are Ben, Oben, Fred, Freddy, Ruben, Tony, and Dr. Laway. Ruben Sr. claimed that his healing powers came from the Divine Father of the Sacred, and his divine prayers are called occultism as mantras. In 1960, Ruben Sr. organized his first group of followers. He called them the First 13. The 12 missionaries resembles the 12 apostles of Christ. They received his blessings, teachings, and instructions. Ruben Sr. taught his followers to heal the sick. In October 1965, Philippine Benevolent Missionaries Association Incorporated was founded by Ruben Ecleo Sr. It was registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission here on the Philippines. His teaching became the fundamental doctrines of the PBMB. Because the island is far from more civilized places, and the education was so low, the island people believed what Ecleo Sr. told them. The islander even called him Dr. Ruben. for the reason that the only person they can seek medical attention was Ecleo Sr. The people in Dinagat believe
that
Ecleo Sr. can cure them.
because of the growing popularity that Ecleo Sr. had in the island, he ran as a mayor for the municipality of Dinagat and won. From 1963 until 1987, he holds the record for serving the longest term as a local executive in Dinagat Island. On 1980, Ruben Sr. made the Dinagat the most outstanding barangay of the Philippines. So on 1981, he was featured in the Who magazine as the South's mysterious superstar due to his popularity in the island. So in 1985, he became the most outstanding mayor of the Philippines. Ruben Ecleo Sr. died on December 20, 1987, leaving his wife and children, and also his followers. Now, let's talk about Philippine Benevolent Missionaries Association Incorporated. Many people said that this organization was a cult because they prayed to the Divine Master or to Ruben Sr. But the member of this organization said that they are not a cult
Because they pray to the Holy Trinity. Members claim that they are just a non-sectarian, non-profit, humanitarian organization and a brotherhood. The goal of this organization was to promote national and international peace and unity, preach and practice the virtue of benevolence by being charitable, giving voluntarily, helping generously, serving faithfully without discrimination or distinction as to race, religion, or nationality. Members have followed the highest level of morality and discipline. That means they have to abandon the vices that they usually do, such as smoking, drinking alcoholic beverages, womanizing, and also gambling. If you fail to follow these rules, they will eliminate you in the group. All woman members requires to wear white dresses upon seeing the chapter leaders. So the member was also required to recite a Latin prayers 8 times a day.
at 6 a.m., 9 a.m., 12 noon, 3 p.m., 6 p.m., 9 p.m., 12 midnight, and 3 a.m. They have to pray their own version of mysteries of the Rosary in ancient Aramaic languages in this given time. So every first Saturday of the month, the members gather in front of the statue or picture of Ruben Sr. to sing a worship song and to do rituals. PBMA members requires to wear a rings for their identification in the organization. Small rings means that they are only an ordinary member. Big rings means that they are missionaries. There are also rings that means they don't go to mission. To honor Ruben Ecleo Sr., the member of the organization built a divine shrine for him at the top of the hill of Barangay Aurelio in the Dinagat Islands. As of today, PBMA landmarks can be seen and visited in the island. These
4 landmarks.
the Divine Master Shrine, Master's Mansion, Comet House, and the Administration Building. Survey says PBMA has 3.5 million members in the Philippines. This organization has also spread in different countries today. PBMA also raised 35 million pesos from the entrance fees alone of the new members. Based on my research, some funds came from the renewal of membership and also donations. Aside from having a lot of money, this organization also had a private armies on the island. And other members of the organization are armed. The reason for that is to protect their divine master. Aside from that, Ecleo family controlled the police department of the island. For the Ecleos, it is possible to do such things because each family members had a place in the local government. When Ruben Ecleo Sr. died, the leadership of the organization was passed on to his oldest son, Ruben Ecleo Jr., and was called by the members as the Supreme Master. At the time that Ruben Jr. received the leadership of the organization, he was a musician and a recording artist. He had a wife, Alona Bacolod, and they got 3 children, namely Hero, Ludwig, and Bena. Alona Bacolod Ecleo's parents are Elpidio and Rosalia Bacolod. She had 7 siblings, namely Gloria, Angelito, Ricky, Josibel, Leia, Ben, and Evelyn. Alona was a medical student in University of Cebu City. While Ruben Jr. was busy running the organization, his wife Alona was taking an internship in Sacred Heart Hospital. Everything changed for Ruben Jr.'s life when his wife's body was discovered in Coro Dalaget. Alona's body was put inside a black trash bag thrown into ravine. She was identified by her family. Ruben Jr. became the prime suspect of killing his wife. Ruben Jr. denied the allegation towards him. According to Ruben Jr., on the evening of January 5, 2002, his wife asked permission to attend a gathering with her friends. On that night, Alona failed to come home. When Ruben Jr. knew about it, he immediately contacted Alona's phone, but then no one answers. The family servant was the one who informed Ruben Jr. about the failure of coming home of his wife. He immediately returned home after spending the night at the PBMA headquarters in Talisay City. The second call Ruben Jr. made was when he arrived at PBMA headquarters in Lapu-Lapu City, and Alona's phone can no longer be contacted. Ben, Alona's brother, who was living with them at their home in Banawa, Cebu City, informed Ruben Jr. that her sister was missing. He immediately told Ben to go to the police, file a missing person report. On the medical report, Alona was strangled to death on January 5, 2002. Both of Alona's brothers, who were living with them at that time, claimed that Ruben Jr. was a drug user. They also said that Alona threatened Ruben Jr. that if he doesn't stop using shabu, she will bring him to the rehab center. Ben, the brother of Alona, who was also a witness against Ruben Jr., was interviewed in a radio program in the evening of June 18, 2002. After the interview, a man entered into their home in Subang Taco, Mandawi City. He then opened fire to the parents and siblings of Alona Bacolod, and even their neighbor was killed. The killer was later on identified as Rico Gomono, a security guard and a PBMA member. He was shot dead by a responding police officer in the crime scene. The gunman killed Alona's parents, her brother Ben, and sister Evelyn. On October 11, 2004, the Bacolod's family lawyer, Attorney Arbet Santa Ana, was shot to death in her office in Sikatuna Street, Cebu City. These killings pinned Ruben Jr. more on the case of killing his wife. Ruben Jr. went back to the Dinagat Islands after his warrant of arrest was issued. He went back to the place where he felt safe and secured because he knew that the PBMA members will protect him at any cost. The arresting police officers had a hard time serving Ruben Jr.'s warrant of arrest because the mansion was surrounded with many members of PBMA. And because the Ecleos controlled the police department of the Dinagat Islands, they can't help the police officer to serve the warrant to Ruben Jr. On the second attempt to serve Ruben Jr.'s warrant of arrest, these arresting police officers had to brought with them the Army's 20th Battalion and air support. At that moment, there are 2,000 PBMA members, including the private armies that gathers around the mansion of the Ecleos. They are preventing the arrest of Ruben Jr. or their supreme master. All these members carried weapons, and when they open fire to the authorities, they don't have a choice but to fire back at them. This encounter killed 1 police officer and 17 PBMA members. After that, Ruben Jr. surrendered himself to the police. So on March 2004, Ruben Ecleo Jr. was arrested and was detained in Cebu City Jail. But because he needed to seek treatment for his heart ailment, the judge allowed him to post a 1 million bail. In 2012, 10 years later, when he was found guilty of murdering Alona, Ruben Ecleo Jr. was sentenced to at least 30 years in prison. And as a compensatory damages to his wife's family, Ruben Jr. was ordered to pay 25 million pesos. After the conviction, Ruben Jr. is nowhere to be found. He stopped going to court in 2011. And even his attorney Orlando Salatandre, didn't know his whereabouts and told the authorities that they only talked over the phone. Because Ruben Jr. was nowhere to be found, he then became one of the most wanted criminals in the country and had a 2 million bounty on his head. So on July 30, 2020, 4:30 a.m. in San Fernando, Pampanga, the 60 years old Ruben Jr. was arrested as he was on his way to play golf in Angeles, Pampanga. Authorities did a 6-month surveillance
On Ruben Jr.'s residence,
on Lot 6, Block 8 in Orosa Diamond Subdivision in Balibago, Angeles, Pampanga. And they are close monitoring his activities because Ruben Jr. was surrounded with many PBMA followers in the subdivision. The surveillance officers needed to pretend that they are garbage collector so that they could interact with Ruben Jr. After 14 years, Ruben Ecleo Jr. was finally arrested together with his personal driver, Benji Farran, also known as Smile, a 35 years old and a PBMA member. Benji faced a case of penalizing obstruction of apprehension and prosecution of criminal offenders. Ruben Ecleo Jr. avoided the authorities by changing his name to Marcos Macapagal Garcia. Manuel Riveral and his followers call him Master Bobong. Not only that, he also changed his appearance. He was far from the pictures that circulates the social media. He is an old man, gained weight, semi-bald, with white disheveled hair. At the time of his arrest, Ruben Ecleo Jr. was living with his new wife and 1-year-old daughter. When authorities asked why no one recognized him or how he socialized with other people, he simply answered that he get along well with others. Ruben Ecleo Jr. was no longer the supreme master when he was arrested. He said that he passed on the leadership of the organization to his sister and his oldest son. When Ruben Ecleo Jr. was arrested, he was carrying a 170,000 pesos, 3 mobile phones, 3 handguns, and 1 M16 rifle. On May 13, 2021, Ruben Jr. died because of cardiopulmonary disease. The Bacolads are finally happy when Ruben Ecleo Jr. was arrested. They longed for the justice for their family for so long, though it was unfair for their sides that Ruben Jr. only served the jail time for a very short time. At least, the authorities did their best to catch Ruben Jr. and serve his sins inside the jail. Other PBMA members had left the organization when Ruben Jr. was involved in the case of his wife, and still, some PBMA members stayed in the organization and believed that their supreme master was framed up with the crime of his wife. They do believe that Ruben Jr. was innocent and that he did not do such cruel murder to Alona. After Ruben Jr. became the suspect of the killing of his own wife, other people said that he even sexually harassed or abused other PBMA members. They said that Ruben Jr. manipulates their mind by telling them that they are offering themselves to the Divine Master, so his plan on sexually abusing them will be successful. I know you are all wondering why Ruben Jr. had eluded the authorities for so long. The answer to that question is that Ruben Jr. had an influence and money. Imagine how powerful Ruben Ecleo's family. They control the whole Dinagat Island, the whole provincial government in Dinagat, and they had thousands and thousands of PBMA members that supports them and ready to protect them. The money and the power that they had played a great factor. That's why Ruben Ecleo Jr. eluded the authorities for so long. I know I don't have the rights to question your beliefs, but as what I have read on the social media, I cannot tell you that Philippine Benevolent Missionaries Incorporated that you belong to is just a simple organization, a simple brotherhood, a simple religious group, because you all believe that Ruben Sr., your divine master, was the one who gave you life, was the one that can save you, and was the one who blesses you. You even call him God, Christ-like, and even his son, Ruben Ecleo Jr., your supreme master, was also called God. You even pray in front of the statue of Ruben Ecleo Sr. and in front of the picture of Ruben Ecleo Jr. So you can't even blame those people who are against you and have called your organization a cult. Do you think Philippine Benevolent Missionaries Incorporated is not a cult? Do you believe that they are just a brotherhood, a simple organization, a religious group? Let me know your thoughts about it on the comment section below. Thank you for watching.